There is a quiet kind of justice that does not raise its voice. It does not arrive with broken glass or slammed doors. It comes with a level tone, a clean signature, and a line drawn so carefully that no one can pretend they did not see it. By the end, the people who mistook patience for weakness learn the difference. So stay with me. This is not a story about rage. It is about a house, a son, a woman who believed every room could be claimed if she spoke confidently enough, and one old man who finally decided that love without boundaries was not love at all. There is a particular silence inside a home you built with your own hands. Not emptiness, something deeper. A silence made of all the life that has passed through it and stayed. The birthday candles, the old arguments, the rain on the roof, the footfalls of people you loved before time took them out of the rooms. My house has that silence. I built it piece by piece on a 3/4-acre lot outside Larkhaven, Pennsylvania. It took me 9 years because I worked on it when I could, after jobs, on weekends, in the evenings when the light held long enough to finish one more beam, one more cabinet, one more row of tile. My wife, Miriam, stood beside me through most of it with a carpenter's pencil tucked behind her ear and opinions about everything. The porch was too narrow. The kitchen window should face east. The hallway needed more light. The guest room should be warm, not impressive. She won most of those arguments. I am grateful for everyone she won. Miriam has been gone 5 years now. The house remains. I am 64 years old. I spent 33 years as a residential contractor. I know how to read a foundation. I know what rot looks like before anyone else smells it. I know the difference between a house that merely stands and a house that holds. Mine holds. It holds the memory of Miriam burning her first loaf of bread so badly we had to open every window in February. It holds the sound of my son, Evan, learning to ride his bike down the gravel lane, shouting for me not to let go, then realizing I already had and laughing like flight had just been invented. It holds 41 years of ordinary life. It is not a mansion. It is not grand. But it is mine in the deepest sense of that word. My daughter-in-law, Serena, never saw it that way. From the first time Evan brought her home for Christmas dinner 8 years ago, she looked at my house like certain people look at things they have already placed inside their own future. Not with admiration, with measurement. She walked through the rooms that evening with a glass of red wine in one hand and a smile that looked practiced from a distance and thin up close. "This place has so much potential," she said. Potential. That is a dangerous word in the mouth of someone who does not own the thing they are describing. She asked how much land came with the property, whether I had ever considered short-term rentals, whether the garage was heated, whether the upstairs guest room could be converted into a suite. She laughed after each question like she was only making conversation. She was not making conversation. She was taking inventory. My son is a good man. He has Miriam's eyes and Miriam's laugh and, unfortunately, a habit of going still when Serena fills a room with certainty. I noticed it that first Christmas. I watched it grow over the years. The way ivy looks harmless until you realize it has been quietly pulling brick away from the wall. Before I go further, I want to answer the question some of you are already asking. Why did I not simply say no? I could have. I almost did. But I had watched Serena operate for 8 years. I knew her method. To Serena, no was not a boundary. It was an opening position. She would step back, soften her voice, change the shape of the request, and return. By the time she was done, the person who had said no would find himself apologizing for having been unreasonable. I had seen her do it to Evan. I had seen her do it to her friends. I had seen her do it to waiters, contractors, her own father, and once to a nurse at an urgent care clinic who had more patience than any saint I have ever heard of. If I said no too early, she would make me the difficult father-in-law, the obstacle, the lonely old man who refused to help family. And then Evan would be placed in the middle. because Serena knew how to put him there and make him believe he had walked there on his own. I did not want my son forced to choose sides, not until he could see clearly which side had been choosing him all along. So when Serena called me on a Thursday afternoon in June, I listened. She did not start with hello. She started with a decision. "So I told everyone we're doing the family weekend at your place this year," she said. "The way a person tells you the table has already been reserved. My parents, my sisters, their husbands, the kids. It'll be around 17 people. Last weekend in July, Friday through Sunday. You've got the room, and honestly, it makes the most sense." I stood at the kitchen sink looking out toward the back fence, where Miriam's roses were blooming red and cream along the old stone border. She planted them the spring before the diagnosis. They come back every year without being asked. "Is Evan on board with this?" I asked. I mentioned it to him, which I recognized immediately as something different from yes. "And where exactly would everyone sleep?" "Oh, we'll make it work," she said. "People can use air mattresses. The kids are fine anywhere. Your 2 guest rooms can hold 2 each, right? That's 4 already." I said nothing. 17 people, 3 days, my house. No request, no conversation. No respect for the fact that a home is not a campground simply because someone has announced it loudly enough. "I'll think about it," I said. "I already told everyone," Serena said. There it was. They're excited, the kids especially. A pause. A small, intentional pause filled with the suggestion that disappointing children would be a thing I would have to carry. "It's just family," she added. "I'll think about it," I repeated. "I'll call you back." Then I hung up. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time. My chair faced Miriam's chair. Her chair had been empty for 5 years, but I still did not put anything there. No bills, no folded laundry, no tools. Some spaces remained spoken for. After a while, I picked up the phone and called my attorney. "I want you to understand what happened next. It was not anger. I have been angry. I know its taste. I know what it asks from you and what it leaves behind. This was not anger. This was clarity. Anger wants someone to suffer. Clarity wants everyone to stop pretending. Miriam used to say the kindest thing you can do for some people is refuse to protect them from the consequences of their own behavior. I was slow to learn that lesson, but I was learning. My attorney, Grant Ellis, had handled my contracts for 22 years. He knew my business, my house, my will, and enough about my family to understand when a silence meant more than the words around it. I explained the situation. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "You want to allow the visit?" It was not a question. "Yes," I said. "I want to allow it." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Give me until Monday." During the next 2 weeks, Serena added me to a group text with all 17 attendees. She introduced everyone with cheerful little emojis beside their names, as if a turkey emoji and 3 smiling faces could turn an imposition into a holiday. While she prepared her version of the weekend, I prepared mine. And I want to be clear about the order of it. I was not reacting. I was building. That is what I know how to do. First, I called Evan. Not to argue, not to accuse, not to discuss the whole family weekend directly. I asked him to come by the following Saturday for lunch, just the 2 of us. He said yes immediately. He drove 40 minutes from their townhouse in Westbridge and found me on the back porch with sandwiches, iced tea, and the kind of weather that makes a man believe for one afternoon that the world is basically manageable. We talked about baseball, his job, the roof leak at his place, Miriam's roses. Then I said, "Serena mentioned she wants to host her family weekend here in July." I watched his face. He looked down at his plate. "She said she talked to you about it," he said carefully. "She did." Another pause. "Are you comfortable with it?" I asked. He took too long to answer. That told me everything. "It's just one weekend," he said. I nodded. I did not push. Sometimes a man needs to hear his own words before he can understand what they cost. Second, I reviewed the document Grant had drafted. He called it a temporary guest license agreement. 2 pages, plain language, clean terms. It identified my property, the dates of the stay, the expected number of guests, and the basic conditions of use. No alterations. No access to my locked garage workshop. No smoking inside. No noise outside after 10. No children in the basement mechanical room. No moving furniture between rooms without permission. A refundable cleaning and damage deposit of $200 per adult guest. And one line that Grant seemed especially pleased with. Every adult guest who signed acknowledged that the visit created no tenancy, no occupancy claim, and no right to remain on the property beyond the agreed dates. I read that sentence 3 times. It was not poetic, but it was useful. Third, I spoke to my neighbor, Walt Brenner. Walt lived on the property west of mine. 72 years old, retired state trooper. The kind of man who can stand beside a porch railing with a cup of coffee and make a person reconsider whatever foolishness they had planned. I explained the weekend over a beer in his driveway. Walt listened, nodded once, then said, "You want me close by? I would appreciate a familiar face. I'll be around." That was Walt's way of saying the matter was handled. Fourth, I made a list of everything in the house that belonged too closely to Miriam to risk it becoming scenery for someone else's chaos. The blue quilt she made the winter Evan was born. The clay serving bowl she bought in Santa Fe on the trip she took with her sister before we were married. The framed photographs in the hallway. Her little walnut jewelry chest in the front guest room, the one she refinished herself and lined with lavender paper. A box of handwritten recipes. The glass bird that always sat on the kitchen windowsill. I wrapped each item carefully and drove them to my sister Ruth's house in Belford. I did not do this because I expected destruction. I did it because some things should not have to survive careless people. Fifth, I adjusted the water system. Now, do not misunderstand me. No one was denied hot water. I am not a monster. But my house has a tankless system with separate controls for the guest bathrooms. I installed it myself 9 years earlier. The panel sits inside the utility closet behind a plain door no guest has ever opened on purpose. I set the guest baths for reasonable, limited use. A good shower, not a spa retreat. Enough for people who respected that they were guests in a home, not customers at a resort. The primary bath, connected only to my room, remained unchanged. Sixth, I changed the Wi-Fi password. Serena had it from prior visits and had once complained that my internet was too slow for a house this size, which was a sentence I admired for how many assumptions it carried at once. The guest network received a new password. If asked, I planned to explain that I had recently reviewed my home security and decided to restrict access. That was true. I had reviewed it. I had decided. The morning they arrived, I was sitting on the front porch with coffee. It was Friday, late July. The air already warm. Cicadas in the trees. Miriam's roses bright against the fence line. The first vehicle turned into the driveway at 10:12. Then another. Then another. By 10:26, there were 4 cars, 1 SUV, and 17 people unfolding themselves into my yard like a traveling circus that had misplaced its tent. Serena stepped out of the passenger side of Evan's car wearing oversized sunglasses and a linen outfit too white for gravel. She lifted both arms toward my house as if presenting it. As if she had arranged it. As if the boards, bricks, years, grief, and labor had all been waiting for her to make use of them. I stood, walked down the porch steps, shook hands, accepted hugs from people I had never met, said the polite things. Serena's mother, Maribel, thanked me twice before she reached the porch. She had tired eyes and a soft voice, and I liked her almost immediately. Serena's sisters were louder and began discussing sleeping arrangements before they finished greeting me. The children ran past my legs and into the house without saying hello. I noticed. I did not comment. After the first wave settled, I asked Serena if she had a minute. She looked at me with the mild impatience of someone noticing a gate where she expected open road. "Sure," she said. I walked her to the kitchen table. Then I placed the 2-page agreement in front of her. She looked at it, then at me. "What is this?" "A guest agreement," I said. "Simple terms for the weekend. Dates, house rules, cleaning deposit. Nothing complicated." She picked it up with 2 fingers. The way people pick up a dead insect when they do not want anyone to know they are afraid of it. She began reading. I watched her eyes move. They stopped at the deposit clause. $200 per adult, she said. Yes. There are 13 adults. Correct. That's $2,600. Refundable Sunday after departure if the house is left in acceptable condition. You can collect it from your family however you prefer, or cover it yourself. I'm flexible on the mechanics. Her mouth tightened. This is family, Ronan. Yes, I said. That is why I kept the terms generous. For renters, the rate would be much higher. She set the paper down. We're not renters. And I am not a hotel. That was the first moment her smile disappeared entirely. Evan appeared in the doorway. He looked at Serena, then at the paper, then at me. Dad? It is standard, I said. I should have sent it earlier. That was my oversight. Everyone is welcome to review it. Any adult staying here will need to sign and provide the refundable deposit. Serena turned toward him. Are you seeing this? Evan came to the table and read the page. I watched him reach the occupancy clause, the one Grant had written so carefully, the one that said no one could stay beyond Sunday and later pretend confusion. Something shifted in my son's face. Not dramatically, just enough. A small window opening. It's not unreasonable, he said quietly. Serena looked at him as if he had betrayed her in a language she had only just discovered. The next 2 hours told me everything I needed to know. Serena disappeared onto the back porch and made phone calls. I could not hear the words, only the tone. Managing, pressing, reframing. The same tone she used when reality had failed to organize itself around her expectations. Her sisters gathered in the living room and whispered. One brother-in-law stood in the hallway reading the agreement with more attention than I expected and eventually said, Honestly, this is cleaner than my lake rental contract. I liked him after that. Maribel found me in the garden. She stood beside me a while, looking at the roses. Your wife planted these? She asked. She did. Everyone. Maribel nodded. She had a good eye. Yes, I said. She did. By mid-afternoon, 11 of the 13 adults had signed and sent their deposits. Serena's 2 brothers-in-law signed quickly. One of her sisters read every word, looked at me and said, You're more organized than I expected. Thank you, I said. I didn't necessarily mean it as a compliment. I chose to receive it as one. She laughed. Serena did not sign. She found me in the kitchen while I was preparing dinner. I'm not signing that, she said. Her voice was controlled. But after 8 years, I knew how to hear what lived underneath her control. I understand, I said. I am not signing a legal document to stay in my father-in-law's house. It's insulting. You're not required to sign it. She waited for the rest. I turned a chicken breast in the pan and let the silence do its work. So what does that mean? She asked. It means the terms of your stay have not been agreed upon, I said. That puts us both in an uncertain position, and I do not allow uncertainty inside my own home. Her eyes narrowed. The rooms are available to the family members who signed, I continued. There's also a bed and breakfast 6 miles down the road. Maple Lantern Inn. Very clean. Good breakfasts. I can send you the number. The silence behind me changed texture. I have worked on enough houses to know the sound of a structure under strain. My husband and I will stay in a hotel, she said. I turned down the flame. My son is welcome in this house whenever he chooses to be here. She stared at me, then left the kitchen. I heard her and Evan talking in the hallway. Low voices, hers certain, his uneven. Long pauses where he was trying to say something she did not want to hear. Then I heard the front door open, and I heard my son's voice from the porch. I'm going to stay here if Dad's okay with it. The door closed. I put down the spoon in my hand. For a moment I stood very still. 5 years of widowhood teaches you things about silence. It teaches you that a person can be absent and still present in the structure of your life. Miriam was not in that kitchen, but I felt her there. Not as a ghost, as a standard. Evan came in a minute later. He sat at the kitchen table and looked down at his hands. I didn't know she had handled it like this, he said. I waited. I knew she wanted to do the weekend here. I didn't know she had already told everyone before you said yes. I didn't know she never really asked. He swallowed. I should have called you myself. Yes, I said. You should have. I'm sorry, Dad. I know. He looked up. He had Miriam's eyes. That has always made it difficult to stay angry at him. Dinner will be ready in an hour, I said. Set the table. He stood, got the plates, and for the first time in years, he moved through my kitchen like a son again, instead of a man waiting for permission from another room. The weekend that followed was not the weekend Serena had planned, which means it was quieter, cleaner, and far more pleasant. Her family, without her orchestration, turned out to be mostly reasonable people. Maribel spent both mornings with me in the garden, asking about soil and pruning and Miriam's old rose varieties. The children, redirected outside instead of allowed to treat the living room like a playground, discovered the fire pit, the horseshoe set, and the creek path behind the property. They came back muddy and hungry, which is the correct condition for children on a summer weekend. Serena's sisters cooked Saturday dinner. It was excellent. One of them apologized for the noise on Friday. I told her noise was not the problem. Disrespect was. She nodded like she understood that more than she wanted to say. Walt came by Saturday afternoon and sat on the porch with a lemonade he had not asked for and somehow received anyway. People spoke more carefully around him. Walt has that effect. Evan stayed the whole weekend. Serena did not. She went to the Maple Lantern Inn Friday evening and returned for parts of Saturday with a face composed of ice and injury. She did not speak much. When she did, it was polite in the way a locked gate is polite. No one fought. No one shouted. That disappointed no part of me. By Sunday noon, the cars had pulled away. Deposits were returned after the rooms were checked. A broken lamp was paid for without argument. 2 forgotten towels were found behind the upstairs door. 3 juice boxes were recovered from locations I will not dignify with description. Then the house was mine again. Evan stayed behind and helped clean. We washed dishes together for a long time. He dried. I put away. The way we had done when he was a boy. The way Miriam taught us. She's furious, he said eventually. I assumed. She says you humiliated her in front of her family. I placed a plate into the cabinet. She invited 17 people into my home without asking properly. She announced the use of my house before I agreed. She treated my grief, my space, and my labor like they were logistics. I handed her a document. He said nothing. I am not convinced the document is the embarrassing part. A sound left him. Not quite a laugh. Not quite pain. Something in between. She does this, he said. Slowly. The way a man speaks a truth he has carried in his mouth for years but never allowed past his teeth. She decides something, and then everyone else is just supposed to catch up. If I hesitate, I'm unsupportive. If I disagree, I'm making things hard. If I ask for time, she says I'm avoiding adulthood. He folded the dish towel once, then again. She does it with me too. I know, I said. He turned toward the kitchen window. Miriam's roses moved lightly in the heat outside. I think I need to talk to her, he said. Really talk. Not argue, not defend myself. Talk. That sounds right. Will you be around if I need to come by? I looked at my son. I built this house, I said. I am not going anywhere. He left shortly after noon. I watched his car turn out of the driveway and disappear toward the county road. Then I walked through every room slowly. The house felt different, not empty, lighter. The way a room feels after you open the windows and let the old air leave. The quilt was still at Ruth's. So were the photographs, the clay bowl, the glass bird, and Miriam's jewelry chest. I would bring them back the following week. For now, the bare places seemed honest. I sat on the front porch with a second cup of coffee. I allow myself 2 on Sundays. I thought about Miriam. She would have had opinions. She always did. I could almost feel them, not as words exactly, but as warmth at the edge of the silence. The kind of warmth that comes from having been known by one person for most of your life and still being guided by that knowing after they are gone. People ask sometimes whether I went too far, whether a legal agreement was too cold, too formal, too much for family. I have thought about that. Here is what I believe. The document was not the point. The boundary was the point. The document was simply the language Serena understood. And sometimes love requires you to speak in the language another person can no longer ignore. I prefer handshakes. I prefer straight talk. I prefer a man or woman looking me in the eye and saying what they mean. But Serena had spent years turning softness into permission and silence into consent. So I gave her something precise enough that she could not step over it and later claim she had not seen the line. Evan called me the following Thursday. He and Serena had spent several evenings talking. Real talking, he said. The kind with long pauses. The kind where neither person gets to win quickly. He said she cried. He said he cried. He said they were going to see a counselor. Someone neutral. Someone who could help them learn how to speak without one person disappearing inside the other. Then he paused. She asked me to tell you she's sorry. He said it carefully, like a man carrying a glass of water across an uneven floor. I appreciate that, I said. Tell her she is welcome to come tell me herself when she is ready. It took 7 weeks. She came on a Sunday afternoon in September. Alone. No Evan. No announcement. No group text. She knocked on the front door. That mattered to me. In 8 years of being family, Serena had never knocked. We sat on the porch and drank iced tea. The air was beginning to turn, not cold yet, but thinking about it. We talked a long time, not comfortably. Comfort is overrated when honesty has been absent too long. She told me she grew up in a house where asking meant giving someone the chance to refuse, and refusal usually came. She said she had learned early to move fast, claim space, secure what she needed before anyone could take it away. I listened. I believed her. Then I said, "This is not that house." She nodded. I said, "No means no here, not maybe, not persuade me, not come back with a better strategy. No means no, and yes means yes only when it is freely given." She looked out toward the garden. Did Miriam really plant all of those roses herself? Everyone. She must have been stubborn. She was stubborn about what she loved. Serena smiled faintly. For the first time in 8 years, I saw a person underneath the performance. Not enough to trust completely. Enough to begin. We are not close now. I do not know if we ever will be. Some relationships are not repaired into closeness. Some are repaired into respect. And respect, if you have lived long enough, is not a small thing. Serena calls occasionally now. Small calls. She asks whether the porch roof held up through the winter, whether the roses need covering, whether I still have the recipe for Miriam's lemon cake. Questions like that are rarely only about what they ask. Evan comes every few weeks. Sometimes we work in the garage. Sometimes we sit on the porch. Sometimes we drive through the hills outside Larkhaven in October, when western Pennsylvania turns gold and rust and red so deep it almost looks lit from inside. He is learning to speak before he has checked whether his words will be accepted. That is harder than it sounds for a man who learned that peace often came at the price of swallowing himself. It may be the work of a lifetime. I have told him I have time. The roses came back again last June. Red and cream along the fence, stubborn, faithful, entirely without apology. I drink coffee on the porch most mornings, and I listen to the particular silence of this house. It holds everything it has been given: the laughter, the grief, the arguments, the bread burned in February, the boy on the bicycle, the woman with the pencil behind her ear telling me the kitchen window needed to face east. It is not a large house, but it is mine in the deepest sense of that word, and it will not be taken, used, renamed, or quietly claimed by anyone who mistakes kindness for weakness or patience for surrender. I have a spine. I built it the same way I built this house, slowly, carefully, with good materials, and with the understanding that anything meant to last must be built with intention. I simply do not always show it until the moment it matters.